First, I will discuss why we may love these genre of stories. Next, I will discuss some shared elements we find commonly within the genre of war stories. And lastly, I will give you a short example of a war story. The director Sam Fuller defined this genre by saying that a war film's objective, no matter how personal or emotional, is to make the viewer feel war. Now, some of the reasons why we may love these war stories is they love action, and people love action, not violence. So some people may not necessarily enjoy the violence, but they just enjoy the action and the adrenaline rush that they get. Many people who watch these war movies don't like violence. Many of those people love the action and the adrenaline rush. Many war movies glorify noble concepts. Many war movies glorify certain noble concepts such as heroism, honor, immortality, sacrifice, and courage. Justified violence. Human emotions depend greatly on the perception of events. If someone was killed, a bystander might not get disturbed if he believed that this person deserved to be killed. In most war movies, killing is justified and viewed from a frame that makes it seem like a positive event. Identifying with heroes. When a person watches a movie, he usually identifies with the heroes. The person who watches a war movie might feel like he is a military commander or in some way involved in the military conquest. Some people, usually men, enjoy feeling powerful and in control. When a person identifies with a certain war hero or a powerful army, he feels more powerful and in control. This makes the movie more interesting to that person. Now, some elements that we can find within most war stories and war films include big battles. So many of these films are defined by their large-scale battles, which shows the brutality and inhumanity of war. The fateful nature of battle scenes means that war films often end with them. Exploring the psychological aspects of war, including the mental strain that combat exerts on soldiers, is another characteristic of war movies. These films and stories help to give us a glimpse into what these men may have been thinking or feeling during these battles. These themes of mental strain on soldiers is seen in this story by Donald Chumley. I arrived with very low morale. I was 19, just out of high school, a farm boy with very little experience in anything. I had 17 weeks basic training at Fort McClellan, Alabama, and shipped over not knowing and very fearful of what the future would be like. There was snow on the ground. I spent the first night sleeping in a stable on some straw with about 2 hours of guard duty standing outside in the cold. My first experience with the real thing began January 6th, when the 90th moved into Luxembourg to take its place in the Battle of the Bulge. This first engagement was quite an experience. The weather was bitter cold and with heavy snow. Within 2 hours after engaging the enemy, Private Connolly was hit in the arm. He was evacuated to the hospital and went home. Some remarked about how lucky he was and called it the $1 million wound. Several days later, Private Chittum came to me holding his arm. He had a bullet hole through the fleshy part of the arm. I gave him first aid, bandaged the wound, and he left walking to the rear to find the aid station. I never saw him again. I suppose that was another $1 million wound. Another of the 50 replacements was killed the first day out, but I do not recall his name. We all knew that it could happen, just did not want to believe it did. I hesitate to tell of my own experiences those first few days. Many who were not there would think I fabricated the details. Believe me, it happened. Advancing through a wooded area, we were hit with small arms fire and mortar fire. I was carrying the M1 and 4 extra bandoliers of ammunition over my shoulder. All of a sudden, 2 of the bandoliers dropped to the ground in the snow. I picked them up and found a band was cut through either by shrapnel or a bullet. About the same time, a piece of shrapnel hit my wrist and made a very small flesh wound. This would have resulted in a Purple Heart, but it was not reported. I was thankful to still have my arm and to still be alive in one piece. We immediately dug into our hold positions and to get protected. While digging, I had my glove up on the mound of dirt from the hole. Suddenly, one glove moved. I picked it up and saw the thumb had been torn away by shrapnel or small arms fire. I need not say I was glad my hand was not in the glove. After 9 or 10 days, we were relieved for several days to rest and regroup. We knew replacements were awarded the Combat Infantry Badge. Truly, we had found out what it meant to be a combat infantryman. Soon after this first engagement, I was made 3rd Platoon Runner and worked closely with the platoon of Company HQ. I felt as though each of us was dependent on the other to survive. I was very lucky to last until VE Day, and I saw many replacements come and go. I served with some fine men and some fine officers like Colby, Smitty, Carlin, Purcell, and Hunt, just to name some I remember most vividly. Of the 50 replacements that came in that Christmas Day, I think there were about 6 of us left with the company on VE Day. Some had been killed, some wounded, and others transferred or gone for other reasons. A combat infantryman just does not last forever under combat conditions.
How did you come across this particular piece?
I was actually just researching different various war stories, and I came across a site that was actually on PBS that published many different war stories, and this one caught my eye and I really thought it fit well with the themes of what I was trying to say today.
So knowing that in storytelling you have to do that as a story, what would you change rather than standing behind the lectern and reading to us?
I think more acting it out a little bit more and knowing the main points of the story and being able to slide swiftly from one point to the next. And generally knowing the overall story instead of being focused on the details was helpful.
The language is important in that story. So knowing some of that exact wording will help. If it gets you out here telling the story, I agree, it would be very helpful.
In terms of the framework that you set up, so one of the reasons that we're attracted to war stories is the emphasis on action rather than violence and the attachment to the noble cause behind it. What do you do with those other stories that actually emphasize violence over the action or the loss of the noble cause, like Red Badge of Courage or Apocalypse Now, or who's that tank movie with Brad Pitt? Fury. Yeah. What do you do with those?
I think that they have their place as well, because even in those stories, like I mentioned, they emphasize the brutality of it and also somewhat the inhumanity of war. And so I think that fits in more into that category of showing how intense it is for the soldiers and how difficult war actually really is. So I feel like it would fit in somewhat to that category.
Why are you interested in war stories, Eric?
Why am I interested? I think it gives me, like I said, that adrenaline rush. And I've always been fascinated with war. I think most little boys are growing up, and I just think that it's something about human nature that we all know exists, but we can't all fully understand unless we've been through it. So I think that kind of grabs our attention.
Would you surmise that war and war stories often start with a noble cause and then can devolve from there?
I would think so. It depends definitely necessarily what side of the war you're on. For some side it may be a necessary war, and for others it may be something that they're trying to accomplish. And so I think you can find noble stories within most war stories as well, but it doesn't necessarily have to start with a noble cause, I would say. I have not.
Very thoughtful on that one. All right, thank you, Eric.